Today's growing problem in healthcare is one of cardiac, as this contributes to 25% of all deaths. In growing economies, a large chunk of this is in the age group of 35 to 45 years. This poses a drastic productivity cut and burden on the family of the victim and the economy finally. The doctor-to-patient ratio in India is very poor. In India and other similar economies, only the acute get attended to. There are only 4,000 cardiologists in India. Therefore, the attempt to reaching and managing patients for cardiac cannot be through the tertiary hospitals and experts, but first through the smaller setups. 84% of hospitals are those with less than 30 beds, and 90% of the 64 million go to these small hospitals. These small hospitals, by using the resting ECG machines, will only pick up patients when they are acute and all other cases go undiagnosed.
MIRCaM, a first product built closely with cardiologists for monitoring and diagnosis of cardiac patients. It brings in effective communication and proprietary algorithm technology for detecting of these conditions at the front line. MIRCaM stands for Mobile Intelligent Remote Cardiac Monitoring. The MIRCaM system consists of many components, starting with the patient side. So this is the MIRCaM body-worn device, which is fitted with standard electrodes onto the patient's chest and hooked onto his hip. This body-worn device picks up his ECG and wirelessly transmits to this bedside unit. This bedside unit displays his ECG, also does a full analysis of the ECG as it's coming in. So this is capable of handling all the different arrhythmias, ischemia and infarction episodes that's capable of happening on the patient. Once it finds an episode, it marks a section of ECG and then records it here, and using its modem uplinks it into the cloud server. So the modem is capable of handling 2G, 3G and is also equipped with Wi-Fi. So once it goes onto the cloud server actually is able to separate different diagnoses that happen across different locations for different devices. So now coming to the remote access part. This is a standard tablet which a cardiologist uses. So once he logs on to the system and he launches our app, he gets to what is known as the dashboard. Using the dashboard, he will be able to select different diagnoses that are happening across the different clinics. So once he loads and selects a diagnosis, he will be able to look at all the analytics of the particular patient being diagnosed. He gets to see various different episodes, the number of episodes and when they are happening. So once he selects them, he gets a set of markers on the display which he selects. He gets to see a particular episode, the episode name, the patient details and all the parameters that are relevant for this episode. So he is in effect having a real-time instrumentation device remotely that is powered through the cloud server. This is the remote tab which the cardiologist uses. It has the MIRCaM app on it. There are two functions to it, mainly the dashboard. The dashboard lists a set of diagnoses that are been done or currently active. On selecting of a particular diagnosis, he gets to see the different episodes that have occurred on this patient, and he also gets to see the analytics on it. So he can actually select a particular patient and it gets displayed like this. So the different markers below are the different episodes that have occurred on this diagnosis. On selection of a particular marker, he gets to see the relevant ECG, which gets fetched off the cloud server. So he gets to see the condition, he gets to see the ECG and the different parameters of the patient, also the patient details. He can actually report remotely using the add to report option. He also has an option of going live if there is a current diagnosis happening. By using the menu option, he'll get to get live ECG, which will get plotted.
MIRCaM is a device which helps in diagnosing the cardiac problems in early stage in real time. It's basically an ECG monitoring. If one look at the evolution of the monitoring, the ECG technology started more than a century ago. Then with the advent of cathode ray tube and oscillograph, the monitoring device was hooked up to the ECG and it was kept at the bedside and came into existence in a coronary care unit for a continuous monitoring of a patient. 12-lead standard ECG gives a spot diagnosis occurring within 12 seconds or maximum of 15 seconds in a patient's event. But a continuous monitoring in the ICU or coronary care unit helps in monitoring the patient for 24 hours or 48 hours. But this makes the patient completely tied down to the bed and the nurse has to be available to monitor it and bring it to the attention of the doctor, and the duty doctor also at times may be present. Then comes the telemetry system in which the patient can be shifted out of the coronary care unit into anywhere in the hospital, preferably in the same floor, and patient can be continuously monitored in the central device in the coronary care unit. Subsequently, the device was made into a 24-hour ambulatory monitoring of ECG. The patient wears the device and he goes back home, and 24 or 48 hours later, the recorded event in a magnetic tape or a digital tape is analyzed in a computer and gives the events which took place in the past 24 or 48 hours and helps in diagnosing. Basically, this was used for diagnosing arrhythmias. The events of ischemia, which is diagnosed based on the ST segment deviations, was not very clear because when the patient moves, there is a lot of disturbances. That is why we try to incorporate the telemetry as well as the ambulatory monitoring in a real-time manner with this MIRCaM. Here the patient is connected. Once he enters the hospital, it is connected to the patient and the nurse is free. The patient is allowed to move around, or if he is sick, he will be in bed. And from a remote area, he can be monitored. And this technology helps in arriving at a diagnosis because it gives warning signal to the doctor as well as the nurses whenever there is either ischemia or an arrhythmia. In between came the detection of arrhythmia alone with a loop system where it was transmitted through the 2G system through the satellite, but it was diagnosing only the arrhythmias. So in MIRCaM, we have incorporated both the arrhythmia problem as well as the ischemia problem. So a patient walks into a small clinic and if he is hooked on, and this is transmitted to the back-end tertiary care center where a cardiologist is available to look in, the patient can be given a clean chit or he needs to be admitted in an emergency care depending upon the findings encountered in the mobile monitoring. MIRCaM is going to play a major role in our developing countries scenario because South Asian population is more vulnerable to atherosclerotic heart disease, which causes coronary artery disease, and the incidence of coronary artery disease is seen in the second and third decades or even fourth decade, unlike the Western population where it is majority are in fifth, sixth or seventh decade. So in the real-time early diagnosis of an ischemic event or an arrhythmic event which is resulting from an atherosclerotic coronary artery disease is more easily diagnosed in real time. Even if it is in a small center, this can be transmitted through the 2G technology and it can be seen at the back end in the tertiary care center or a cardiologist at his office or even at his home.
Azure provides the right platform for MIRCaM systems. It helps in hosting the data and connect the devices in the field. The solution hosted on Azure acts as a control server and it also is used for device management. It helps in providing the data, the right patient data, to the remote locations where the expert doctors can look upon it. Azure notification system along with the remote app helps in providing the critical data analytics to doctors so that they can take important decisions for their patient and help them at the right time.